Hello, welcome to another episode of the Kuchbhi podcast. Today we will be having a new guest on our show, Mr. Gaurav Malhotra. Thank you for joining. And today we will be discussing the season so far for Formula One in 2022, and we'll see what comes next and discuss more on the topics surrounding this season, including all the controversies, so you don't miss out on anything. So let's start with our first and most burning topic, which is the topic of Daniel Ricciardo. He is currently
Yeah,
in McLaren, but Alpine, having lost Oscar Piastri, apparently are very interested in getting Daniel Ricciardo. But we don't yet know what Daniel has to say on this topic. What do you think?
I think that when we look at the season when Daniel has actually signed up with Alpine, he got a podium, right? The first podium in like a long time, and that was a third place, if I'm not wrong. And was it at Monza?
Yes,
Yeah, so it
right.
was at Monza. And post that, things are looking good. And then he decides that, okay, now let's leave uh, Renault and let's go to McLaren, be the honey badger and all everything. That decision was not okay because things were actually looking better for him at Renault. But then he joined McLaren, and apparently McLaren got their first podium in a long time. And not even the first podium, I think they got a double podium, first and second, both Lando finishing second and him finishing first. And
Right.
we thought that okay, Danny Rick is returning to F1 maybe. Maybe he's going to go at the top and fight with McLaren. Sorry, not McLaren. The Red Bull and the uh, Ferraris. But then there was a dip in his form last year. Things not going good between him and Zach Brown, and then uh, Lando, is bonding with Lando is not that great, and it's obviously very visible to all the fans. So when we thought that okay, this season they might get a better car and he might do better, but his performance just seemed to dip a lot. I mean, if you look at the two McLarens that are on the circuit, the difference, the point difference between Lando and Danny is, I think, over 60. The point differences.
Yep,
So
I believe so. Something like that.
yeah, so I don't think that he's doing a very good job at McLaren. So he's saying that McLaren is the place where he wants to do things better. He believes in the car, and he thinks that they can give him a better car and he can turn around things. But it looks very hard for him now, with strong competition coming in from Piastri. I don't think they are going to retain him for the next year. They might settle up with the 12 million, the hefty $12 million that he's asking for, and maybe release him. And that's where Alpine can nab him. Yeah, but I don't really see Danny Rick turning around things drastically in the second half of the F1 season. What do you think?
Yep, that's true. So as you said, last season he managed to get the first win actually for McLaren in several years, which was a very big deal for the team itself and also for him because after he left Red Bull, he never really looked like he would ever win a race in any other car. The other car being Renault, as you mentioned earlier. And in Renault, although he did get on the podium a couple of times, but I don't think it was because the car was improving a lot. It was mostly because the people in front were having some sort of issues because of which
True.
they couldn't finish the race. And Daniel just happened to take advantage of the situation. So I believe he took the right decision in leaving Renault for McLaren because McLaren was at the time looking like the team who would be making the most progress in 2021, right?
Hmm.
And they actually did make progress. They finished, I think, third in the constructors last year, if I'm not wrong. Third or fourth, I'm not sure. I think
Fourth, I
somewhere,
think.
yeah, fourth. They were third in 2020, I guess, and fourth in
Yes.
2021. So
Yes.
it's not a bad situation for McLaren considering that they were P3 in the season when Daniel was in Renault. So it made sense for Daniel to switch to the team which looked like it's going to make progress towards their end goal of fighting for championships. And coming to last year, everybody was looking forward to the matchup and the teaming up between Lando and Daniel because both of them are like meme lords in their own way. And everybody thought that this would be like an amazing publicity and marketing move for McLaren. And I'm pretty sure even the McLaren bosses thought the same way that having two drivers having such a massive social media following would be in the same team. But unfortunately, that didn't work out as they expected because even though these two drivers, Lando and Daniel, are very congenial towards other drivers in general, it seemed like they had some sort of ego wall between them and they were not interacting as
True.
well as they should have. And that
I
I
think,
think led to
yeah.
the lack of coordination between the drivers. And I think it sort of negatively impacted the team also because when your drivers are not able to communicate and share a rapport, I think it creates sort of some kind of a barrier between the teams and the drivers as well. And the lack of communication leads to a lack of development in the car indirectly. So I think it's a combination of these factors as well as a lot of other small factors which haven't allowed Daniel to really flourish at McLaren so far. Yeah.
Hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, same. In most of the races, when you're seeing the both of the drivers are in like maintaining two positions, one after the other, uh, then some harsh calls are being taken at let Lando take over or let Daniel take over. The reaction from either of the drivers hasn't been very good. They have been not very happy that why the other one being given a roundabout to take over, and yeah, it's probably because they think that they can have a better chance of taking more points on that day. But that feeling I don't think is mutually agreed between the two drivers. I mean, if you look at Mercedes, I think Bottas was a superb partner with Hamilton. Every time he was asked that let Hamilton take over and he has a chance to win the race or the championship, I think Bottas just did it with no questions as most of the time. But having seen the same scenario in McLaren, I don't think both the drivers are at very same page. And I think the problem is that both of them kind of have an alpha personality. So I think most of the F1 drivers have the alpha personality, but like these two have on their peaks, they don't want to be uh, shown lesser than the other, and that's where the brotherhood or the camaraderie that should exist between the two drivers in the F1. It doesn't look very good when we see at McLaren. I mean, if you see, Sainz has moved to Ferrari, but his bonding with the Leclerc is amazing. His bonding with the Lando was amazing. But what what Sainz left at McLaren, and with Danny Rick coming in, I don't think he has been able to maintain the same coordination, the same brotherhood between the two of them, and that's what has cost them a lot. And I think they will not even finish fourth in the constructors championship this year. I think Alpine will take over them, and it might be possible that by the end of the season, I think they will be finishing by a margin of 20, 30 points.
Yep, I agree. I agree. So you mentioned the comparison between Sainz and Daniel. So it is a very interesting comparison because when Sainz was with Lando, there was a very good camaraderie between these two guys. And similarly, when he switched to Ferrari. So if you look at Sainz closely, every team and every car he has been in, he has always managed to adapt himself to both, right? He has never shown any kind of attitude towards any teammate. And whenever the car was itself difficult to drive, he has always managed to adapt his style of driving and managed to, extract the best out of the car. So I would say right now in the entire Formula One grid, I think Sainz is the most skilled when it comes to
Yeah, he
adapting to
rated.
new situations. Yes.
Yep,
So
yep.
he is definitely someone to look out for in the future, and I think he will definitely be fighting for championships, if not this year, then definitely next year when
Yeah,
he gets a
definitely.
more stable car. I
He
think if
also
he
got
had
his
a
first win at F1 this year. So
exactly. And I think if his team strategy was good enough this year, he would have also been right up there with Max and Charles fighting for the championship. He is losing out only because of the car reliability so far. If you look at the first two races of the season, it looked like it would be P1 and P2 for both Ferrari drivers at the end of the year. That was the dominance of the performance from both of
yeah,
them.
in
But
most of the qualifications, also, I think most of the time these two guys have been starting in the top three,
exactly,
but somehow failing to finish it off, and it really does matters. Also,
right,
before we move on to this Ferrari thing, one last thing about Daniel Ricciardo and why he won't make it to McLaren next year, I think, is because he always says that he wants to he wants to believe in his car. He wants to be more with his car, to be one with his car. But that is coming with a cost to the team, and especially that he is not adapting to the car quickly, and not adjusting his driving style. Also, if you see, uh, he wants the car to adopt his driving style instead of he adopting and respecting the car. I think that is also one of the factors that sometimes when he's starting even in the top 10, but he's finishing out of the points race.
exactly. That is a very important point you mentioned. And actually, I was myself coming to that point only. That on the one hand, we can see Sainz adapting so easily to all these new situations, but Daniel needs the car to be built around him. Now, that is a luxury for any driver in any team, actually. And that kind of luxury is usually provided by the team to the driver one of that team, the primary driver, whom they consider a
Mm.
long-term bet in the team. So for McLaren, clearly it's not going to be Daniel,
Yep,
considering his age and considering that the fact he just joined. They clearly have displayed that for them, Lando is the driver for the longer term. And even if they were going to build a car around a driver, it would be Lando first and not Daniel, definitely. But
exactly.
having said that, McLaren are clearly not building the car around any driver. They are just following a standard architecture for their car. And even Lando is having struggles driving that car as per himself, as he has mentioned in several interviews in the past. So it's not like they are showing any favoritism to Lando as of yet. It's just the
Mm.
car and how it behaves. Even though there's
Yeah,
been a
he's
massive
more adaptive.
Right. Even though there's been a massive architectural change in the car from last year, but still the car has carried forward some of its small intricacies which make it difficult to drive from last year. And that's why even now both the drivers are finding it difficult, and that's why they are below in the points table. And you
True.
mentioned that Alpine will probably take them over in this year's championships. That is very much possible, but I have one doubt in my mind because Alpine, the internals of the team don't look very strong right now. Clearly, Alonso is not going to stay with them next year, and they don't
Mm.
even know who will be the second driver until now. And it doesn't look like they will get who they want. And there are contract complications between Daniel's contract with McLaren and Oscar's contract with Alpine. And it really is going to be interesting to see how that turns out. But
So you're saying that in the next year, both Alpine will be coming out with two completely new set of drivers.
it could be possible. I mean, for Alpine, Esteban Ocon is going to be there for sure. And for McLaren, Lando is going to be there for sure. So it's the question of who their second driver is going to be. And
Yeah.
Alpine has clearly mentioned that for the second position driver, they will look for someone who can actually build on the team's performances so far and lead them towards the championship fight in the coming 100 races. So the team principal Otmar keeps mentioning they have a 100 race plan to get back to the top. But
Yep.
I don't know if Daniel will be the driver who will be able to take them there because he clearly has issues with adapting to new situations and setups and teams. Even in Renault, when if you saw that he spent a good 2 years at least in Renault before he was able to give those performances,
Hmm.
the podium performances. So in McLaren also, this is his second year, and unlike his time in Renault, he's actually going down in terms of performance in McLaren. So it looks really bleak for him right now. And if he were to leave McLaren next year, the
Hmm.
control is completely in his hands because if McLaren decide to move him out, they will have to pay a very heavy fine in as far as his contract is concerned because I think they will have
True.
to pay something like in seven figures to him if they were going to break his contract. So he will essentially be getting paid a large sum of money to not be driving next year, which is really great for him. It's great for him because he will have the option of leaving McLaren as well as joining a new team because clearly it's not working out with his current team. And with Alpine, he has experience. He was there before McLaren, so he knows a bit of how the team works. So that should be an advantage for him. So the question really is if Oscar can make it to McLaren because I don't know if Alpine intend to let him go without a fight because they did mention that there will be legal ramifications for Oscar's move, right? So it's going to be a
Hmm.
very interesting couple of months from now
Hmm.
to
True.
see what happens in future. So I guess that's what we have to say for this particular topic.
Yep.
Moving
So
on to the next burning topic. Uh,
Ferrari.
yes, Ferrari
So
and the
so so
strategy
let me
calls.
let me let me ask you this. How would you summarize the first half of F1
I
2022
mean,
for
I mean,
Ferrari?
I have no words to say. If you look at the start of the season, the first two, three races especially,
Yeah.
anybody would say that this year the championship is going to Ferrari for sure.
Yes.
Because
Even
not
somebody who has not even watched F1, let him watch the first two races and ask him, what do you think will win? And he would place his bets on Ferrari.
exactly. And if you just looked at the domination of Ferrari in the first two races, I mean, even Red Bull were not coming close.
True.
That was the power of the car. And at the start of the season, when all the teams were revealing their cars and their liveries and setups, Ferrari was one of the best looking cars, and everybody immediately knew that this car is definitely going to change Ferrari's fortunes for this year. And it did. It delivered so nicely in the first two races. And from there on, it was like a downward slide for Ferrari. There have been good performances in between, but it never really looked like Ferrari were in control of their strategy or in control of their reliability because something or the other was going wrong for them. Either it was Charles crashing in Monaco, where he could have easily won the race, or
True.
whether it was him or Sainz, getting out due to reliability issues, engine fuel tank issues in certain races. So, and okay, those were understandable. These are technical issues. But what I fail to understand is the strategy calls they made for some of the races this year. I mean,
Yep.
for a couple of races, it looked like Charles could easily take the win. And the pit calls made at the uh, time by the team was impossible for us to understand as normal humans, right? Because because even the most lowest rated teams were taking the common sense pit calls, and Ferrari
Exactly. You
were
look at Williams. Williams is taking the
right,
right call.
right, exactly. And Ferrari, I mean, that race, I don't recall the race, but they gave Charles the hard tire when everybody else was taking medium tires.
Yep.
And even Charles at a point was asking them, "What is the reason we took the hard tire?" And even the his race engineer was, I'm pretty sure he didn't have a good enough reason to tell him. So he told him to discuss after the race, which clearly means that they cannot reveal the reason in public. And even his team was, he just is not accepting their strategy mistakes. He keeps saying that everything is good and we will continue to improve and all that corporate nonsense. But he is not willing to accept the problems in the team. Now compare that to Mercedes Toto Wolff. Okay, they immediately accepted after the first race itself that their car is not
Yep.
going to compete for the championship. They are nowhere near the front runners. So nobody should expect them to win the championship, right? And they have been so consistent with their performances. They have been gradually improving by bits and pieces. And now they are in a situation that they can seriously challenge the front runners for the first and second positions in the upcoming races.
Yep.
Now,
If you
if
look
they
at
are
the
lucky,
last three races that made it to the podium.
yeah,
Nobody was
not
expecting.
just the last three, in the last five races,
And the last five actually.
Hamilton has been consistently in the podium. And the last two, three races, Hamilton and Russell both have been in the podium. So that tells you a lot about the improvement and the progress made by Mercedes so far. And not just that, they have consistently reduced their porpoising issues, which were causing them to lose a lot of speed in the straight lines. That has given them the speed increment, and they were already good in the corners, so they slightly improved that as well with their rear wing adjustments for more downforce and all. And they
So
have
I'm
been
just
decent. They have been decent in the pit stops as well. I mean, they are not the best
yeah,
car,
yes.
but
Not the
they,
best, but they have
yeah,
been consistent
yeah,
and gradually
yeah,
improving, as you say.
right,
I'm just going through stats of Leclerc for this year and Bahrain podium, Saudi Arabia podium, Australia podium. Then Romania is again on sixth. Miami is second. His first DNF is at Spain. Monaco he's fourth, again out of the podium. Azerbaijan he couldn't finish the race. The second one of the first half of the season. Canada he's fifth. British Grand Prix he's at fourth. And then Austria he makes a comeback and he's on podium. And then France again he's out of the race, couldn't finish that one. And the last race at Hungary, he was at sixth. So I don't know. It's kind of a very stupid graph. It just goes sometimes. If it's
yeah,
going up, it's going really up, and if it's down, then it's like really down. Like there's no
yeah,
consistency in the performances. There's no consistency in the
exactly.
way he's
And
driving.
and if you analyze the races, there are only like two, three races where it was Charles' fault for not being in the podium. In all
Yep.
the other races, it was either the car or the team strategy which let him down. So,
Yeah. I mean, the engine going down for one or two races, I remember. And he couldn't even finish it. He was losing power on the engine. So
right,
if you have made such a good car for the season that you think can win you not only the drivers championship but the constructors also, why is it not able to perform? It's just beyond the comprehension of a simple human mind. You don't
exactly,
have to do much. You just have to do the basics, and you will have the championship. I mean, Leclerc is a great driver, and he's supported by another great driver, Sainz. So
exactly.
even if sometimes he's getting a tough competition from Verstappen, Sainz is there to cut him off. So they could basically work on the strategy, just a very simple strategy. Keep the thing simple. Why are you just trying to do something out of the box approach when there were medium tires? Everybody was moving on medium. Why would you give him hard tires? Like
Yeah, that was simply inexplicable. I mean, nobody had an explanation for that.
yeah,
And
and this is not a new team, something like a
right,
Force India in
I mean,
2008 that could do so
Fer-
many mistakes.
Ferrari is the only team in Formula One history who have competed in every single season
Yeah,
so far.
right.
So that means that they have a wealth of experience. And not only that, they have won seven world championships as well.
Yep.
Okay. There is only one other team that has won so many championships, and that is Mercedes. And
Mercedes, and that's in recent years.
Even Mercedes has not competed in every single year like
Yeah,
Ferrari. So for a team which is as experienced as Ferrari to be making these kind of strategy mistakes is very hard to digest for long-term fans of Formula One and even the new
exactly.
fans. Because I mean, this is some of the strategy calls they made were simply defying any common sense. I know we are continuously dissing on Ferrari, but it's so hard to digest because
Yeah, I
everybody
mean, you
was looking
expect
forward.
it, expect it to do good.
Yeah, yeah,
You are, if you're not even an F1 fan, you know that there is a Ferrari F1 racing car that is around the corner. You know
exactly,
that there exists a car. So for first time if you're seeing that race, you will want to support Ferrari because that's the only recognized name that you know. And if it's not doing good, then it's fair on the part of fans to take a diss on them. Because it could have been really good, but it's pretty disappointing. Just like it's just like Daniel Ricciardo moving out of Red Bull and going to Renault. It's that kind of a performance this year.
exactly, exactly. So I know Ferrari, hopefully they improve their strategy. They have a nice break now. They come back next week. Hopefully they
Yep.
have recharged their batteries and they make the
Do
right
you,
calls for the rest of the season. But coming to the next of the rest of the season, we have another team we are very interested in following, which is Mercedes, which we were just talking about. So they have been in an upward trend in the last, half a dozen races or so, and they
mm,
look like very strong contenders now. I mean, if Ferrari continue to make mistakes, I think Mercedes can easily snatch away the second
second
position in the
position?
championship
They're
in
just
both
30
the
points behind.
exactly not only the constructors but also the drivers championship. If Charles continues to, not improve next in the next set of races, what do you
Mhm.
think?
Yeah, I mean, given the experience of Hamilton and the great support by Russell, they can pretty easily overtake if Ferrari continues to do the same mistakes they have been doing in the first half of the F1. I mean, there is no clear doubt in my head that they can clearly finish strong on the second position and can pretty much deficit the point difference between them and Red Bull. I think they might be targeting that only, that they have to finish strong on the second position, because if you look at other teams, there is zero competition from them. So there is the second position is on the cards between Ferrari and Mercedes, and right now Ferrari is, though it has a 30 point uh, gain on them, but they are looking much behind, because if you look at the last five races, they have Mercedes have really uh, put on their socks and they have started working really hard on that, and they are building up their momentum also. So I think that they can pretty much finish strong second on the constructors this year. Drivers, I don't think Verstappen can be overtook by either Hamilton or Russell, because
Yeah,
I think that the
it's
point
yeah,
difference is just way too
yeah,
huge
yeah.
for him to cover it up.
That's almost impossible now. I
He
mean,
has to win
was
every other race. That's
right,
the only
right,
that's
right.
the only point difference.
Verstappen will probably have to get a DNF in 3, 4 races
Yep.
in order
Or he
in order for
finishes
the
out
others to
on the
catch.
podium, or he
Yep,
finishes out the points table. Points. Yeah,
exactly,
that is the only
exactly.
that is the only way I see that Hamilton can win. But I think I'll give it some 1 or 2% of doubt, given that it went the other way for him last year when it was all in for Hamilton's, but Verstappen
Yeah,
got involved in the end. So anything can
yeah.
happen.
I mean, last year was another story. He lost the race under very mysterious circumstances
Yep.
in the final race of the last year's championship. But let's not get into that. That's a very controversial topic, and a lot of people have a lot of things to say.
So there is this another Mercedes driver, Russell, George Russell. How
Yep.
much has he impressed you this year?
I mean, I was already impressed with him when I saw him getting on the podiums with the Williams
Yep.
last year. And even before that, uh, he managed to impress almost the entire Formula One community when he got into the Mercedes car for the first time in an
Right.
actual F1 race because Hamilton was out due to COVID. and
Mm.
he was in. I mean, I think he was qualified in P1 for that race, and he was
P1
looking
or
P1 or
P2, I think.
P1 or
Yeah.
P2, I think, right?
I mean, the
Somewhere.
first two were Mercedes, for
Yes,
sure.
yes. He was either P1 or P2. But as soon as the race started, he was off like a lightning basically. He's off the charts, his driving skills. And it was very apparent that he was definitely going to win that race. But again, tragedy struck just like it is striking Ferrari this season. And all sorts of issues affected him. I mean, first, it was tire issues. I mean, and they had to pit because of that. Second,
Yeah.
they did the wrong installation of tire. They mixed up his
Yeah.
tires. That was something I've never seen in all my experience of watching F1. I mean, a team like Mercedes mixing up tires for one of their race drivers is something unimaginable.
I think
But yet it
they
happened.
did it for Bottas also.
No, Bottas
Or there
suffered
was
other.
some other team was there that who did it twice, doing wrong tires on both their
Uh,
cars. It was not fitted
no,
properly.
no, no, I don't. There were other kind of issues,
Fitting issues. Yeah.
not
Yeah,
the
not
exact
the
issue.
wrong tires. Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. I think for Russell it was they had fit one soft tire and one medium tire, something like that,
Yes, 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 yes,
if I'm not wrong there.
yes, yes, yes.
So, or maybe it could be something else. Maybe they fit a one older tire or a newer tire. I'm not sure. But it
And he
was
could have
in that,
easily finished on the podium.
yeah, because after the first issue, he was again coming back to the P1 and P2 positions. But after the second issue, it was no longer possible for him to get anywhere near the podium, even though he was clearly the
Yep.
fastest man on the track. Faster than even Valtteri Bottas was driving for the team since the last 3 years. So
Mm.
that was the moment when the entire world knew that this guy is definitely going to dislodge Valtteri from his spot in the team because even though Valtteri is a very strong and consistent driver, he never had, or at least it seemed like he never had that X factor, to challenge for a
Mm.
victory because Hamilton won't be there forever. He will have to either leave the team at some point or he will not be able to be P1 in every race. So somebody has
Yes.
to be there to be in that position when he's not able to go there. So Russell
True.
looked like the one, and not only that, he's extremely young at 24, I think, and he's definitely like Lando and Max for McLaren and Red Bull respectively. He's
Mm.
probably the go-to and the long-term driver for Mercedes for the upcoming 5 to 10 years, I think. I think he can get very near to Hamilton's championship records if he is consistent and if Mercedes gives them a strong car in the coming years, like it gave Hamilton.
If
He's the
Toto is
driver
around.
to watch. Yeah, I think Toto will be around at least for a couple of years more, if not.
Yeah, I think his stint
Yeah,
will end with Hamilton winning another championship.
yeah. I mean, I think everybody wants to see Hamilton win another championship or maybe two more and make it 10. How
I
many
think
has
he
he
has
got so far?
seven,
He has
right?
seven, right? I mean, if
Yes,
he wins
seven.
three more, it will be like impossible for anyone to even come near. But
Yep. I mean, 10
having
years on the
having
circuit.
said that, I mean, he just needs to win one more to become the greatest of all time.
Yep.
Right now, he's tied with Michael Schumacher, who's got
Yep. Yep.
another seven. But if he had just won the championship last year, everything would have been sorted. But
That
but
the,
now,
the referees have robbed him of his
yeah,
championship, basically.
I think that if he had won last year, Hamilton could probably have retired this year. Who
Yep.
knows?
He wouldn't have been along with
Yeah,
Vettel,
yeah. I
two
think
great drivers.
he's still fighting to get that record to his name. I don't know because that would be an incredible fiat and one that cannot be easily broken by anyone anytime soon.
Yep. Talking about retirement, why do you think is Alonso still in the circuit? Why?
I think that guy simply loves racing. He doesn't race for the money. or the fans. I think he just enjoys the pure driving and the racing and the competitiveness of the
And I
sport.
mean, he's not doing bad. He's doing pretty decent on the circuit if you see. I mean, he's
E-
consistently in the points most of the time
Exactly,
this year,
exactly. I
and he's
mean,
impressing everybody.
exactly. I mean, at his age, most drivers would have been long retired, but he's still able to keep up the fitness and the same, fire in his belly which he had when he was winning championships. He still has that X factor. It's these guys who have the special ability. They are the guys which teams are really fighting for. Every team needs this kind of person. So I think even if he was not taken by Aston Martin, I think there would definitely have been another team who would pay good money to get him into the team. And
Yes.
he is getting very good money, in fact. He's charging seven figures at this age, something which no other driver at the same experience level. I mean, I won't say no other driver, but I don't think every other driver at a similar age can command such a salary.
Hmm.
So,
True.
so definitely the teams recognize his talent and what he
Yeah,
can
I
do.
mean, if you look at people coming to his age, like I recall Kimi Raikkonen, uh, he wasn't very good at the end, and okay, he wasn't getting a very good car also, but then you could see the dip in the performance. But like Alonso has like seriously impressed everyone with the Aston Martin. If you see with his fellow driver Stroll, I think he has performed way better than him in understanding the car
Oh,
and
Alonso is
improving.
in Alonso
Oh,
is in
sorry,
Alpine.
with Alpine. I'm
He's
sorry.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, yeah, sorry. I got confused. I got confused with it. Sorry. Yeah. So
happens.
Alonso has been doing great on the circuit. I mean, consistently being in the points and putting Alpine in a strong position. And I think he is one of the reasons that McLaren could be uh, losing only fourth position this year. Third position,
Ex-
fourth position this year.
Exactly. And I would go so far as to say that I think Hamilton lost last year's championship because of Alonso. Because if you notice, there were a couple of races where Hamilton was literally stuck behind Alonso,
Yeah,
and
he wasn't giving any space.
yep, even after having the faster car, he was not able to get anywhere near the podium positions for several laps. And that delay really cost Hamilton and worked in Max Verstappen's advantage.
Hmm,
And I
true.
think Alonso may be having a personal grudge against Hamilton, but whatever he did manage to stop Hamilton in his prime. And being at his age, that is really a fiat for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
there's
yeah,
another team which I would like to talk about is Haas. Zero
yes,
points in 2021 and 34 points in 2022. I think it was 0 points in 2021.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Somewhere,
zero
or
points.
or
Yes, 0 points.
at least nothing to be proud of, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was zero. And then they sign up. Then they last year they had Schumacher with them, and
Yeah,
then they get back their all reliable Magnussen this year.
yeah,
And Magnussen,
that was really
they just
amazing to see Magnussen coming back to the team. The circumstances were not that amazing, but the fact that he made it back to the team and that the team, believed in him that he would be the driver to go for, even though they
yep,
probably had other options, was really good to see. So
yep, and he started really strong, like fifth in this first race.
yeah,
I mean, that was a bold statement that I am here to stay. You are not going anywhere. You just can't rule me out of F1 yet.
exactly, exactly. And I mean, if you notice that Haas is also using Ferrari engines. So
Yes.
last year Ferrari was not anywhere near the top, and now Ferrari is actually fighting for the championship. So
Mhm.
in fact, if you notice that all the Ferrari powered cars are performing much better than last year, and all
Yep.
the Mercedes powered cars are performing much lower than last year. But they are also gradually improving as Mercedes also makes improvements. But Ferrari powered cars are also degrading at the same time, along with their main engine supplier team, which
It
is
looks like a two
interesting.
two edge
Yeah,
sword. doesn't
Yeah, it's
really brings you the speed, but then it's eating on the power.
yeah, that's an interesting trend which we are seeing this time around. But Haas is definitely taking advantage of Ferrari's more powerful engine this year, and definitely they are showing the results. And also they
Yeah,
have this time they have two decent drivers. One is a very good experienced driver, and the other one is consistently making progress compared to their last year's team, where one was an absolute newbie and the other who was also newbie, but he was finishing so far behind the rest of the grid that he
Maspin.
couldn't really be called a F1 driver at some
Yeah, I
points.
mean Nikita Maspin was just there because they were short of funds. So
Yeah,
that's why I think, and this was I thought that it is going to turn out same like Lance Stroll for Aston Martin.
yeah,
As if you have the
and
money, then your son is going to race.
apparently Mazepin is still uh,
Pissed off.
very pissed off exactly at Haas for throwing him out like they did, and he has been making threats that he will destroy the team and
Yeah,
such. But I mean, Haas really didn't have a choice, I would say, because of the
yeah,
situation between Russia and Ukraine. So it's not like Haas had an option to continue with them. I
yes,
mean, Nikita did mention that he could be racing under a neutral flag, but I'm not sure of all the technicalities and the legal matters involved. But all I can say is whatever happened happened for the best for us, and I
yeah,
think they can move forward with the current setup for the next 1 or 2 years at least. I think, and
yeah. So
unless Michael Schumacher decides to move to some other
Mick
team.
Schumacher.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the names are very similar.
Yes, I mean, what are the odds keeping your son? Oh, my name is
Yeah,
Michael. Okay, let's keep his name as Mick. Wow.
very interesting choice of name for his son.
So Haas is on seventh position in the constructors, and above them is Alfa Romeo. Do you think Haas can overtake Alfa Romeo in the constructors championship in the second half of this season?
I mean, Alfa Romeo is sort of in a similar position to Haas in terms of drivers, I would say, because both of these teams have one experienced driver and one very young driver. But I think Haas has a very small advantage in the fact that Mick has already spent 1 year in Formula One. So he has
Mm.
slightly more experience compared to Guan Yu, Guan Yu Zhou, who
Mm.
is driving in his first year right now. But seeing his performances so far, it doesn't seem like it's his first year. He's driving extremely well. And alongside
Yeah,
him is Valtteri Bottas,
yeah,
who has been a very consistent driver in the past with Mercedes as well and all these other previous teams. So they're giving a very strong fight to Haas when it comes to this year's championship. So I mean, it's a little bit more consistency from Haas, I say, would help them to fight Alfa Romeo.
mm,
Otherwise, Alfa seems like they're comfortably placed in P6 so far.
right. Also, so for next year, do you think Haas is going to retain both? I mean, they will obviously retain Magnussen, but now that they're finishing good on the constructors championship, I mean, this could be their best ever if they finish seventh. I don't know. Uh,
No, I think
so
Haas has actually finished in a much better position previously when they had Roman Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen in the team. It's only in the recent years that they have gone down. If I'm not wrong, they have finished in P5 or P6 at some point. I think it's
but mhm,
2017 where they finished in P5 or 6. I think.
2017.
Let me quickly check that. But yeah, I think they have definitely finished higher than
Oh,
seventh
no.
at some point. Yeah, in 2018, yes, they were
18, yeah, 18, 18.
P5 in 2018. So that was their best ever finish.
Mhm. Yeah, but if you see there is a drastic improvement, like from P10 to P7, they would be very happy. Like
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They have all
they
the
can
reason to be happy.
they can vouch for good drivers as well. I mean,
Yeah,
there are pretty few in the market that could be available to them if possible. Do you
yeah.
think they will go in for somebody more experienced than Schumacher, or will they go with Schumacher?
I mean, see, Mick Schumacher is has always been destined for Ferrari, right? Since, because of history between the team and his father. So, and also he's a Ferrari Academy driver. So,
Yep.
the reason he's in Haas is because Ferrari instructed Haas to put Mick in the second seat. And he, although last year was not his best performance, but this year he has been consistent. I would say more consistent than last year and has been in the points somewhat. So I
Yep.
don't think Haas will be in a hurry to replace him with anybody else. But if they decide to replace him, or if Mick decides to, look for another opportunity elsewhere, I think there will be teams who might be interested to give a chance to Mick. But whoever it is, it will probably be a Ferrari-powered team, like Alfa Romeo, maybe. If Valtteri
Mm.
decides to retire at some point, I don't know. It doesn't look like it, but that
Valtteri, I think he will continue for 1 or 2 more.
I
Two,
mean, I mean, they don't
two
have a
is
lot of,
stretched, but
yeah, they don't have a lot of options for Ferrari-powered engines. It's only Ferrari themselves, Alfa Romeo, and Haas, I think. The rest are all Mercedes powered or Red Bull powered. So the
mm,
options are limited. I think it will stay this way until Ferrari decide to make a chance, which is not
I
going to
don't
happen
think
anytime. Yeah, it's not going to happen anytime soon
Leclerc is
because
too young. Sainz is
eh,
probably have has a lot of years in him. I don't think.
Science is
If,
also young. I think he's just 27, I guess, or 28,
yeah, yeah.
if not.
So he has
I,
another like 8 or 9 years with him. Good 8 or 9 years.
so
If he's
I think the next big shock is going to come when either Sergio decides to retire or Red Bull decide to throw out Sergio or Hamilton decides to retire, which is very much possible in the next 1 to 2 years. So
yeah, I mean Checo
these,
can retire. I mean
yeah,
he's finally got his F1 podiums, and then I don't think that any driver who would have been starting in those cars which are not probably in the top three or top four would have dreamt of going on and doing it at a later stage for Red Bull and winning a race for them. I think he's probably achieved a lot, and it's a very good career that he has had for a long time, and I think he will be very happy if he decides to hang up his boots and go on.
yeah, definitely, and he will definitely be leaving on a high. But I don't see why Red Bull would remove such a
Yeah.
consistent driver as Sergio, because he's clearly the reason why they are still number one in constructors championship
Mm.
last year and this year both. And he was a
Do you
very
do you
instrumental.
think
He was extremely instrumental in Red Bull winning the drivers championship last year also because he supported Max so extremely well. So I don't think even Max would want Red Bull to get Sergio go. So let's see. That is, I mean, Sergio could even continue for another 1 to 2 years. Who knows?
if he can? So, but I think do you think Nico Hulkenberg has made a statement for him that he should get a permanent seat in the F1 instead of being a super sub every time?
Yeah, I mean, for Nico Alkenberg, I think I don't think he's going to get a permanent seat anytime soon because of his age and the fact
Mm.
that almost every team currently in F1 has a young reserve driver who is waiting in the wings to get into the F1 world and whom the teams have also invested in. So I think Nico, unfortunately, his time will probably never come. But if it comes, I would be very happy for him and I would like to see him in a permanent seat. But I don't think that is going to happen anytime soon.
But do you
I,
think he can be
I
probably
think that,
a substitute for Schumacher in the next year if Haas decides that they can go with a better experienced driver?
That
Because
is
having two
that could
experienced driver on the circuit will probably
that
put
could
them in a
be
much.
that could be
Hmm.
possible, but Hülkenberg is currently an Aston Martin Reserve, which is a Mercedes-powered engine. So if he wants to switch between a Mercedes engine and a Ferrari-powered engine team, I think it won't be that easy. Although it could happen because he's not a full-time driver,
Yep.
but it that comes with its own complications because now he has to adapt to a new engine type and all the associated aerodynamic settings of the car and all that. So I
So
don't
I
know.
don't think he's going to get a seat at Aston Martin
Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
because I think Stroll is there, and instead of Vettel,
I mean, there is one way where Nico could make a entry, perhaps. That is if F1 decides to allow a completely new team to enter.
I think there was
So,
talks or there were talks about two new teams that could enter
yeah,
by
yeah.
next year.
So if that happens, definitely, I think one of the teams would want an experienced driver to guide the development of the car. So
Yes, and who
if
better
that
than Nico?
happens, yeah, and if that happens because Sebastian has retired and Alonso is already going to Aston Martin, I think
Yes, yes, yes. He's
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 going
a
to
he's,
replace.
he's a prime candidate for that position. So let's see. Interesting things could happen, and a lot of
Hmm.
shakeups could happen if there's a new team on the block in the upcoming years. Personally, I'm looking forward to Porsche joining Formula One because I really wanted to see Porsche since I was a kid in Formula One. Because ever since I played that game, Need for Speed 5, Porsche Unleashed, I have been a fan of Porsche since. So let's hope they come soon.
Yep. Let's hope we get two more teams next year, and it would spice up things more on the circuit.
Yeah. So I think we covered almost all the topics
Yep.
except one topic, which is the best race of the season. So
Which is the
let's
best
start
race
with,
of the season.
yeah, let's start with you. What do you think was the best race this season?
I think for me the standout is Sainz winning his first F1. I think that has to be the best race of the season. I mean, you wanted to see this time of his. You wanted to see Sainz winning the race, but somehow he wasn't able to get it there. But then seeing him finally on the finishing as a P1, I think that was the best moment for me. Uh,
Yeah,
I don't know if he can grab one more in the second half, that would be really great. But yeah, for the first half of the season, I think this really stood out.
yeah, I would have to agree that this was definitely a race where got to see a new winner after a long time, which is Carlos. And it was really a very commanding performance right from the qualifying to the race. And the strategy and all the car performance, everything was perfect for Carlos on that day. But you have to feel for Charles also because he lost out. But
Yep.
you're still happy for Carlos because he took his maiden victory, I think. And
Mm.
yeah, but personally, being a Hamilton
Lando
fan,
wasn't happy when
yeah,
Danny Rick won. So yeah,
exactly.
that is the difference that you can see between
Yeah.
both of these
Pers-
things.
Personally, being a Hamilton fan, I think for me, I also really enjoyed the French Grand Prix because
Yep.
we finally got to see two Mercedes drivers both on the podium at the same time after a very long time this season.
Yes.
And also the Hungarian Grand Prix were the same. It was exactly the same podium from France. It's like somebody copy pasted Verstappen in first, Hamilton second, Russell third.
Yep.
So these two races from a Mercedes fan point of view, amazing.
Yep.
And yeah,
I
and the
I
British
really
Grand
hope
Prix.
they can. I really hope Hamilton can notch up few, at least try and get at least one or two P1s in the second half. I mean, that would be the cherry on the cake for Mercedes from the position they were in at the start of the season to where they can finally make it. I think they would
Yeah,
be pretty happy finishing P2 on the constructors, and possibly if Hamilton can get into the top three.
yeah, agree. It's going to be a very exciting second half of the season, if nothing else. Everybody would be looking at these three teams fighting at the top because it is very close. I mean, it's not very close, but there is a very high scope of something happening or shifting between the positions of the teams towards the end of the season, and it all comes down to which team is the most consistent, and that is something which is really going to bring in a lot of excitement to this phase of F1 in 2022. So let's watch and bring all the updates to our viewers and listeners as and when the season progresses.
Yep, I'm sure if somebody has been listening to us for this long, would have been really engaged. We tried to cover everything. We tried to get along with everything, see what's happening, what's cooking, what can be better for teams, and we are really looking forward to the Belgian GP, which is coming next weekend, and we'll keep you guys posted with all these things. And it was really great to come on your show, Jensen. And this is my first podcast that I've been a part of, and I mean it was very interesting to talk on F1 with somebody.
Very glad to have you on the show as well, and hope to make you a more regular feature on our podcast going forward. And
Sure.
definitely appreciated the advice on all that audio intro. So let's end this episode today, and looking forward to the next episode. Enjoy the upcoming races.